Hello, everyone. Welcome to Philly Sports Now, a Philly fan podcast. My name is Zach. With me is Andrew, and we're back to talk about things Philly sports. Now that we are back, I'm going to do a quick apology at the top, but there is currently, I believe we decided on 3 podcasts we recorded last week in limbo. I'm traveling this week. I didn't edit them on time. They will come out as soon as possible. However, in the meantime, they're in podcast limbo world. This is a new podcast being recorded for you on March 5th, 2025. And this will be going up as soon as possible. Like I said, we're going to talk Flyers, Sixers, and Eagles. If Andrew has any Philly sprinkles, as always, he can do that. Probably keep a little key. I saw a funny, I'll say this Phillies thing on the top. I think it was MLB social media. It wasn't even the Phillies social media. But they gave Bryce Harper 5 different coffees in front of him. And he had to try and guess what types of coffee they were. He took a sip of the first 3 and was like, God, these are all off.
That's funny. He's TikTok famous now. He does all these TikToks now, so you got to keep this trend going.
It's so funny, like to have the MLB social media team come up to you and be like, "Hey, we want to play this game," and he's just like, "This sucks."
That's who he is. He's
honest. I know. He's absolutely he's he is who he is, and I love it. No, I just thought it was funny. So that's my Phillies news for the week. But let's start Flyers. We'll go Flyers, Sixers, Eagles. We'll go the good, the bad, and the great. But
say best.
Yeah. So I kind of teased it in our last podcast that hasn't released, but basically I got to go to the second of the Pittsburgh Philadelphia NHL games and of the 1-1 series. And I did see the Flyers drop the game in overtime against the Penguins. Gotta say, it was an awesome game to watch. I mean, the Flyers had such a lead. I never really thought they were going to lose. But the Penguins did come out with some pretty crazy energy, especially in that third period. I did, however, think, and for starters, I'm glad, you get the point right when you go into a tie game. So at least there's that from that side of things. But I was surprised the Flyers lost that game, specifically because I thought that I'm going to pull up real quick. Wrong list. I thought after Hathaway was injured, the Flyers were basically not going to let the Penguins get away with anything. And unfortunately they did. They, came back, tied the game, going into overtime, and you went in the 3v3. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that injury was crazy. I mean, I got to see the Pittsburgh Penguins goalie get taken out and throw a tantrum on his way out. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But overall, I was a little disappointed in how it ended, but I was pretty happy to go to that game. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. From a neutral standpoint, it was definitely a fun hockey game to watch. I mean, from a Flyers standpoint, trying to make a playoff push, that extra point really could be a big difference here late in the run. I mean, you sit 4 points back, so essentially 2 games back of a playoff spot. So at one point really could be a big difference here down the stretch. And I mean, just crazy how many teams are jumbled up there in that second wild card spot. But it was important, obviously, to get that first one against the Penguins. Obviously blew them out, but like you said, I mean, you hope that injury could have rallied the team, but it did the opposite. Obviously, it affected the Flyers in a bad way and let the Penguins get out to a jump start. And sometimes when you pull your goalie, that's the jump start some teams need. And that's what the Penguins, they were able to get to and get that advantage there. But like you said, at least you come away with a split. And before Tuesday night's loss, you're on a 5-game point streak, which is huge here on a playoff push. Now you get 7 straight at home, 6 left after that game against the Flames. So this is your opportunity to make a run for the Flyers.
Let's talk about that run. Andrew's transitioning as always. I love it. But I pretty much didn't have anything else to say for the Penguins game. Like I said, it was a good time. Glad I got to go supporting the Orange. But sporting the Orange is what I meant to say there. But going on that transition to Flyers making a run, I did do some quick analysis, and it looks like a lot of people around the league and socials think that the Flyers have a solid 50-50 chance of getting into the playoffs, which, not the greatest thing in the world, but that's not terrible. And you point out we have a good home stretch right now that's definitely in our favor, and definitely something we'd like to see. I mean, we said it, we kind of had I'll say a 5% hopes last year of this happening. but I really do, as wanting to see the Flyers start to grow, right, with this new Mitch Caveira. I really do want to see them make that first round of the playoffs. Just get that foot in the door experience going.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, it goes a long way to get that experience and you need it. And it starts with, again, hopefully you continue to make that run and you make noise and you get something exciting for this front office to do in the offseason. I know you mentioned we'll get into some trade deadline talk here in a little bit, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen, and that will kind of tell the future of the season. But you have to make noise and make something happen going into the offseason next year, because I think the biggest thing with this team that it's missed this season is consistent goaltending. You've had different guys hurt, you've had different goaltending play. So I think it's the biggest thing the Flyers need down the stretch here is consistent goaltending. And if you get that goaltending, I think you can sneak in to the back end here. And it helps, again, you have a lot of home games left. And hopefully here down the stretch, I mean, not hopefully, you do have a bunch of games against some of these playoff contending teams you're going to need to beat to get in anyway. And I think that's why it's so 50-50 is because of how jumbled this is. So a lot of your games will be against these opponents you're trying to catch and keep out of the race. So
Yeah, I mean, tried to cough off screen, and of course, it's when it's my turn to talk, I'll start coughing. It's just classic. But I think it's interesting, right? Like the Flyers do have pretty much the most interesting, fun kind of end of season here, especially for I'll say me as a growing fan, you as a lesser than Nick fan. Like if as us like to grasp our interest, this is quite literally the best situation for the Flyers as a franchise because like this is a put your money where your mouth is, right? Like show the growth that we keep on saying the Flyers are trying to do here. Use that opportunity. So yeah, I mean the timing, the scheduling, it's all perfect. It's all in their I don't know if in their favor is correct, but it's all in their hands.
Well, for sure. And I mean, let's face it, this next month too is all Flyers. I mean, obviously the Eagles are done. Phillies will open up at the end of March. But I mean, let's be real. Obviously, I mean, we've talked about the Sixers are bad this year. So all the attention from Philadelphia right now will be toward the Flyers. And fans know the expectation of, you hope you sneak into the back end of the playoffs here. So, I mean, what better to get behind this young group and try to chase them or help them push into the playoffs here? Again, all attention is going to be on this team and the young guys. So, I mean, it's going to be a fun last month. Hopefully it goes our way. And, we're getting into the playoffs. And like you said, that first round could go a long way for some of these young guys and the experience heading into next season. And I mean, let's be real. You sneak in, you're going to be the 8 seed. You're going to face the best team in the conference. And obviously you're going to be the underdog in that series. So maybe, you make that series fun and you see what happens. But this team has a bright future. I think we'd all agree on that. Like you said, the Mitch Caveira, you have Konechny back. So I mean, again, it's going to be a fun next few years. I think if you can play this offseason right. But again, it's on this team. It's on this team to give the front office a reason to be optimistic and make noise going into the offseason.
Speaking on the offseason, and I'll say more so what's going to happen between now and the offseason. Trade deadline approaching March 7th, this Friday, probably tomorrow if anyone's listening when this drops. And there's a lot of trade speculation, trade rumors. I was listening to a couple podcasts today in kind of preparation for us, of course. And I think it's quite literally that there is no one knows, right? Like in the next 2 days, it feels like something I'll say average could happen. Like no one expects a big splash in the pond, but people are expecting something to happen. I have a couple of examples here. I'm sure I'm going to botch everyone's name, but let's go for it. Rasmus Ristolainen, subject for trade speculation, as well as Scott Lafton. Ladden? Lafton.
Scott Lawton.
Lawton?
That's
just wrong. His name's just wrong. All right. Well, whatever. This is the podcast with minimal editing. Again, full disclosure. We are, you know what this is? This is 2016-17 Sixers Zach. Like I am just really getting my feet wet with the Flyers. And no, I don't. I'm learning. I'm learning right there with you. And if you're learning right there with me, put a comment in the comments on the YouTube video and say, "Hey Zach, we're also just starting to be Flyers fans, and that's okay. That's all right. And also drop a like while you're there. Follow us on Spotify. The plug's been done. Anyway, Andrew, your thoughts on those trade speculation rumors or any others you might have?
Yeah, I think Scott Walton. I think he's going to be the guy that's moved, unfortunately, and he's a fan favorite. He's been around for a little bit. I think he wants to stay in the city. I don't know if he was trolling or if he's got inside speculation, but I don't know if you've heard the tweet he put out. He put out a picture of the Last Supper with a lot of Flyers players edited on it. So it's kind of funny. Again, I don't know if he's just trolling because of all the rumors or if he knows something's up. And I mean, who obviously, if he's getting traded, he's going to a true contending team that has a chance to hoist the cup at the end of the year. So anybody obviously is going to be excited as much as he probably wants to stay in Philly. When you have a chance to go make a true run at the title, obviously anyone will be excited for that. So again, a guy that's been around for a little bit, but I think that's where this team's at with him being a free agent going into 2026. That's where it's at with him. He's the guy to move. He's the guy to free up space and get some picks and stuff back. And the Flyers already have a ton of draft capital, but you expect them to get something at the deadline, add more capital, and head into next season going forward. So again, I think he's the guy to look forward to get moved this season. And then as far as the next one, we're still in. I think he's going to stay. I think he'll be. I don't expect the Flyers to do much. He's a guy that Chuck Fletcher brought in, so I think he's a guy that maybe they're ready to move on, start the defense fresh. Again, one of the few guys still left from that Fletcher era. Start over with this new group, so I would not be surprised to see him moved. I just don't, with how close the Flyers are, I don't see them trying to make too many moves. They already have, I think I read 14 picks heading into the next draft. This draft in the offseason, so you can only have so many draft picks, right? Lined up. So I think that's another reason why you might just see this team ride it out, see what noise they can make late in the year, and then you'll see more moves made in the offseason to get next year's roster. So those two guys I could see moved. I think Scott Lawton's the one to be moved out of those two.
Full disclosure to the people who didn't watch and are listening, but I had to take a step away for a quick second. But if I repeat anything Andrew says, just let me know. But basically, my whole thing I've seen and kind of agree with is based off of what I read, what I heard you say too, is it's just more speculation that we're going to move people rather than acquire people. So I don't want to say disappointing, but it's kind of disappointing is the way to say it. Like, not that I need a big acquisition in the next 2 days, but it just feels like something's missing offensively, and I don't know what to do about it, but that would be great.
I just think the position you're in, you're better to. I mean, there's obviously.
I think ride out the season.
But
I
think,
agree.
Yeah, right now, again, with the picks you have, you can move those picks for talent. So I think we know a move you're going to make right now is going to make you jump from whatever that playoff contending team to a Stanley Cup finals team on paper. So again, I think that's the move. Is you just maybe move one or two guys, see what you get, gain more capital, and then you move that capital for guys in the offseason. And again, truly make that big run next year with another year under Mitchkov. And hopefully he wins Rookie of the Year and you go from there.
I saw people speculating that because it's a better draft class, people that might be moved before the trade deadline will specifically be to get 2026 draft picks. I thought
that could be the case.
I mean, what a like, you want to talk about a long con? That's a move. Yeah.
No, it sure is. And again, but here's the thing with the Flyers already having, I think it's 13 or 14 picks. I mean, there's no reason to kind of add more picks for next year. And I think it's a 7-round draft. So you might as well get right. I mean, basically averaging 2 picks a round. So yeah, I mean, to that point too, on top of a better draft class, you might as well stack up 26.
So wrapping up the Flyers and moving on to the bad in Philadelphia. That is your bad Philadelphia 76ers. Really the big news dropping since our last recording is that Embiid is officially out for the season. Now, as of today, I have not seen any update on what the frick is going on. I don't think anyone knows still, but Embiid officially rolled out for however many games are left. I don't even know. I think someone was commented, if I remember correctly, saying they still want to make a push, though, for the playoffs. And I just, that's so stupid. I
I
don't
mean,
know
it's
if that,
the players are going to say that.
but
If
that's
that's what you
just
mean.
like, I mean, the players don't even look like they were making a push when Embiid was playing. Like this
The
team,
joke was, I know you're talking about. It was Paul
okay,
George, because Paul George said he's going to stop podcasting and focus on a championship.
yes, yes, and it was
Why
just,
wasn't that done in December?
I have to think maybe the office said something to George, or maybe Nurse said something to him, and he was like, "Oh, okay." And that's what his public comment was. I got to stop podcasting because we're getting a championship push.
Yeah.
Like I could see something like that being the issue. But man, the whole. I mean, look, we've talked about the organization being a joke, so I just say let's focus on the Embiid news. I just can't like. It just seems like no one knows what's going on because I gotta assume the severity of his knee is so bad. There's just no right answer.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a while now. I mean, this is a year, it's a year late. It should have been done last season. Got him right for this year, especially with the hopes of signing a superstar like Paul George heading into the offseason or heading into the season from the offseason. And now you do it a year late. They finally shut him down. It's the right move, and now you get him right for next year. And that's the move and direction you're going to go is get him healthy. Maxie's dealing with an injury too. George has been dealing with stuff. So I mean, it's just shut them all down to be honest, and get them all ready for
Let's
next year because your window is 3 years with George,
so that's
and
let's
Embiid.
save
So
some.
again,
I just wanted to say let's save some Paul. I kind of wanted to talk Paul George, so let's save that a little bit for right now. But continuing on the Embiid, Maxi, I'm not worried about. He's a young dude. He'll heal up.
yeah.
He's good. Like I'm not trying to be facetious or anything, but like I'm not worried about Maxi. Embiid. So like when it comes to him and his stuff, you mentioned that he should have just not played this year. One of the things that I heard is that it could be as bad as a meniscus replacement surgery, which I don't know. I have done zero medical research and I do not claim any medical knowledge at all. But from what I heard on Sports Talk was that this surgery, if it's this severe, could be an 18-month recovery post surgery. So like we haven't even started that clock yet is the point. So I guess my question is now that we've wasted this year that should have never happened, who is going to essentially ride out? Because the next year could also be a wash because of whatever this rest is. And let's say Embiid plays halfway through the year or something. He he really just shouldn't because he's going to need so much recovery regardless of what this is. Like, I don't know, maybe he needs to call up Aaron Rodgers and get whatever kind of extra dosage of drugs and mushrooms and whatever else, some darkness he needs to get the magic of replacing. I think he was the ACL,
He was.
Achilles. But I next year I just don't even see Embiid being a valuable part of the team, and that is a shame for starters. But I guess my question for you, Andrew, is I don't know. I mean, like, what? I guess what is your Embiid expectations going into next year?
I mean, we have to wait for the report. I guess 18 months sounds like a lot for me. I don't remember anyone like injury wise having to deal with that. So that sounds. I mean, that's over a year. So I mean, that'd be a year left into his contract. So I fully expect him to
He
be
only has
playing.
one more season in his contract.
Well, if you're counting 18 months, that's 2 seasons.
Oh, gotcha. Sure.
But I expect him to play at some point next year. I'd be shocked if he's not playing next year at some point. Whether it's I'm not saying opening day, but um, I mean you have to save it at this point. Yeah, I mean you have a backup center who's going to be back next year, and Andre Drummond, who's a very good backup. He can hold a fort. He can hold the fort down as a starter. He's another guy that's been banged up off and on this year, but I mean, you saw what he did the other night, dropping 25 points and 18 rebounds. So again, he's more than capable of playing well. That's going to be to answer your question, I guess my expectation for Embiid is to be back on the floor next year, and he probably won't be averaging his 35 a game and his MVP level, but I think he's still going to be a dominant center, and I think he's more than capable of still being a very productive player. I think it's time Maxey takes the next step and passes Embiid as the go-to player on the team. But I think Embiid is more than capable of still being the second option and providing a spark for this team to go on a run in the playoffs.
So speaking of Maxi, we'll talk that now. But I something I've joked around with a lot off the podcast, and I have been joking about it, but I also do think it's a serious concern, and that's Maxi has the max contract right now. He's set. I mean, set for life is an understatement with how much money you're going to make in that situation. But also, he is set to be a Sixer for life. Very specifically, he's set to be a Sixer for life, right? If you're Maxi, and Andrew's a super fan for the Sixers, and I know it's hard for him to be criticizing even in this time of absolute loss, but if you're Maxi, at what point do you actually start weighing the option of leaving to go win elsewhere? Because I don't think everyone is quite the same where you can make all the money in the world and ride it out in a city and just be their guy, right? Like, I, I just don't think that's the case. I think, man, I really wish I had a good example because I mean, we've definitely seen that, right? You see, all right, I'll use Miles Garrett right now. Miles Garrett could make all the money in the world at Cleveland. They need him. He's their best player, arguably, right now. And he wants out because he doesn't think they're a winning franchise. He wants to go win rather than ride out whatever Cleveland's doing. At what point do we get worried that Maxey is going to have that very serious thought or conversation with people about doing that?
I don't see Maxey as the type of guy that does it under contract. His contract takes him with Embiid and Georgia, so I think that's the perfect timeline of the 3 years. But I think that's also the nice part that gives him the flexibility of when those two guys are up, you're going to have obviously all the money in the world. So you'll have the luxury of having a chance to keep him here by buying more free agents. Because obviously every year there's some type of superstar as a free agent, right? So I mean, it might not be your favorite guy, but there's going to be somebody every year that you can improve your team with. And I think that's the luxury the Sixers did right, I guess, in a way, is the best way to say that for a change. Was they kind of have all of them off the books at the same time. So they'll have a lot of flexibility money wise to keep him here. Now, to your point about Maxey, again, I don't see him as the guy. I mean, it very well could be this offseason. I mean, to be honest, if he realizes, oh, Embiid's injury is never going to heal, George has been dealing with injury stuff. I mean, if the Sixers aren't good next year, George could be a guy that's traded at the deadline. And then it leaves Maxey. So, I mean, it very well could be within the next year. But again, I don't see him as that type of guy. I think he's a guy that plays out the contract and then moves forward from there as a free agent.
Do you like that's a great point. And I wasn't even necessarily talking about like demanding a trade. So talking about him riding out his contract at least. What do you think it takes for him to either want to stay or want to leave at the end of that contract?
Leave, I think is a little bit of an easier answer, to be honest, it's the same situation now. It's Embiid doesn't get 50 games or a playoff run. George continues to battle injuries and the front office continues to do nothing and
See,
continue to mismanage the injuries. Because that tells him nothing's going to change. There's no reason for him to stay. To get him to stay, I mean, it's similar to, I guess, the way they've treated Embiid. You have to treat him like the greatest thing ever. Tell him, hey, here's our plan. I mean, you saw Embiid going into the last offseason when they signed Paul George. Like, you got him excited with that. Obviously, you saw him in the finals on ESPN on those interviews with Paul George. And again, I think that's the move is you're upfront with Maxey. Here's the plan. When George and Embiid are off the books, we want player X, player Z. And that's our plan. And you make him the guy. You kind of, I'm not saying you have to buy into, some of the other superstars, but you have to do everything Maxey says, but you need to bring Maxey into the meetings. You need to ask Maxey, who do you want to play with? I don't know.
Do we know he's not getting that conversation already?
We don't know that. I think right now Embiid's still the guy they're building around, or not building around, sure. Playing around, and putting the roster around. So he very well might be in the meetings, but I don't think
That's what
he's
I'm
the
saying.
first voice. Well, I
I
guess he's
wouldn't
in
be
the meetings.
surprised
I
if
just
he's
don't think he's the
involved.
first voice.
Yeah.
So I think that's the move is you make him the voice at that point, and um, basically, yeah, you let him help direct the team. And at that point, I mean, who knows if Nurse is still the coach, or who is the coach at that point in time? So again, hypothetically, if Nurse is on his way out that same time as George and Embiid, you make Maxey involved in those head coaching decisions too. Again, you're not sitting there and you have to do everything he says, but he needs to have a say on who he likes and who he doesn't want. I mean, you got to keep him happy, and if things continue to go the way they're going now, you're gonna have to make him extra happy.
Now, I think what I would say that why is that button not working? Um, so a thought that I came across while I was listening, and I feel like we're tiptoeing around it, but I just wanted to get a kind of straightforward answer if you've got one. At the end of all these contracts, which we're just saying is or around the same time frame, are we assuming Embiid is done at the end of this? At the end of this contract he is on?
Yes, yes. I'd be shocked if not. I
That's
mean, if he's not, I mean, things have gone very well over the last 3 or no, next 3 years, not the last 3.
exactly. But that's my point. I think Embiid walks away, and it's going to essentially be. I think it's going to be very similar to the Wentz situation. Actually, the difference being I trust Maxey, and it's essentially going to be what do you want to do, and by that I mean like you're going to have person A leaving, possibly person B, if we're including Paul George, which I assume they wouldn't re-sign as well, regardless, unless like you said he's superstar in the next 2 years. But like I truly think it's going to be I don't know. I think it's going to be a conversation. I do actually personally think he rides out his contract. I'm not saying he demands a
Yeah.
trade before then. He's very young, so at the end of his contract, he's still going to be young, um, and he can go live out the rest of his prime somewhere else. I don't think he needs to leave now. Uh, when you can make again, he's making all the money in the world, so it's not a question of money. That's the thing that makes it a very interesting conversation in my eyes. Is that we're not talking about someone who can try and go get more money somewhere else. We're talking about someone who has the ability to win and wants to go where he can win.
Yes. And I mean, at that point, who knows where all the other teams are at too. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation with Maxey here in a few years.
And now, speaking as we are about these contracts and people leaving and going and whatever, Paul George, I mentioned it. We definitely talked about it on the Lost podcast right now, but we talked about how I know I said I don't blame him for kind of spiraling this year where he got put into this position now for a lot of money. So, like, he definitely didn't step up to the leadership role he should have, like Harden did. We also talked about that. But uh, I also don't fully blame him for kind of spiraling, not being able to handle what is the Embiid situation, the Nick Nurse situation, the office, like all of it. Like it's a hot mess to be thrust into after being signed for millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's like you kind of take what you can, right? Um, but that being said, I'm very forgiving of him this year. And I'm curious if A, you're forgiving of him this year, and B, what is his deadline in your eyes?
I agree with you. I think it's tough to judge anybody this year because it's been such a tough thing for everybody. That's why I've been on record too with Nick Nurse. I know a lot of people are getting on his bad side, but again, what else is he supposed to do? So to answer your question, I think next year is a live or die year for George. You're a year now in Philadelphia. You're expected to be a superstar. So hypothetically, if Embiid is kind of off and on again or misses the start of the year, I mean, again, you're getting superstar money. You're getting 50 million a year. You need to help this team get to the next level. You need to help get this team to elevate. Right? I mean, he needs to be that second superstar, and I think you will see that. I think with Maxey hopefully taking the next step again. He's learning this year when he's gotten double teamed and everything with Embiid off the floor. He's had to adjust his game, and he's adjusted pretty well after a slow start to the season. And we've seen it across sports, especially in Philly too, with guys taking a slow start in their first season. And I think you're seeing a little of that with Paul George. I think you've seen him grow throughout the year with the Sixers. His last few games have been better. Not to, his last two have been close to his standard you're used to, but I mean, for him averaging only 16 this year, I'd hope he can get to 20 next season. That's where I want to see him at is 20, probably about 20 points, 4 or 5 rebounds, and 3 or 4 assists is where I need to see George next season. Because you're getting 50 million a year. You need to be able to help this team get to the next level without Embiid, because there's no guarantee you have him. But again, you're getting that money. You're expected to be there. And again, this year's tough. Throw it out the window for everybody. I can't really judge this season. It's been such a wash. Nobody knows who's on the court every game, and it's hard for these players to get used to as well. So next year, I need to see him elevate.
I completely agree. It's funny. The main thing I wanted to talk about today was Embiid officially getting benched, and I feel like we flew by that because in reality, without the full details of what his injury is, all we know is he's officially been benched. And with that benching, it's like we've already said it, but we just keep saying, why didn't this happen sooner? And it's just such a it's such a idiotic, absolutely disgusting decision. And I think I've officially, in my opinion, believe it's Embiid's team. I don't know if it was a money thing, like he had to play a certain amount of games to get a contract, like to get his money paid this year. I don't know, but I'm just officially disgusted with this whole season. I mean, I was disgusted as a fan before, but this whole season is like a farce. Is basically what it came out as, and it's just it's Embiid pretending like he cares. It's the Sixers pretending like they care, and it's Nick Nurse just sitting there at each press conference, not sure what to do. I did mention this in the last episode. I'll mention it now before the Lost podcast comes back. But like, I just love not even watching the Sixers games anymore. I just watch the Sixers post game interviews with Nick Nurse, because there is no man on this earth more defeated than Nick Nurse post Sixers games, regardless of if it's a win or a loss. He just is so defeated, and it's a shame. Just like everything else with the Sixers, the shame, but it's pretty entertaining TV.
But it's gotta be so hard for him. I mean, there's not like, what is he supposed to do? He's probably looking at this like, I gotta keep grinding it out. But like, what else? I mean, I don't even know who's gonna be playing on the floor tomorrow. Like, I mean, like,
Yeah, it's a wild time, and it just kind of
and it's shame for him too, because it makes him look bad too. And I mean, if things go bad, this is the second job he's fired from after his championship. So he knows he can only keep getting so many jobs too. So I mean, it's a tough business, obviously.
And I don't want to like harp on it too much. We've talked about it before, but like you also mentioned it already, but I just certainly don't blame Nick Nurse. Has he made some bad decisions this year? Of course, he's definitely, I'll say, contributed to this problematic season, but I don't blame him for this problematic season. And I think anyone who does is pretty small minded in the sense.
Well, it's like, hey, how do you not make bad decisions, right? You're trying to throw everything you have in.
He doesn't
try. You got to try every different lineup you can. I mean, of course you're going to have good and bad decisions in a year like this. Yeah. There's no way to avoid that.
I mean, it feels like after the end of it all, Nick Nurse had about as much information about Embiid and his injury that we had, which is insane to say out loud.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, there's times, I mean, he's basically in his shoot around press conferences like, I don't know if he's playing tonight. So I mean, it's bad. No, it is. I mean, it's a shame. I feel for him. Like,
yeah, I feel for him too. I really do, because I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he is in a bad situation, and it's tough. And now a good coach needs to find his way out of it. But I just also think the Sixers as an organization has broken him. Like he looks depressed. Like, I'm not a psychologist. Don't take my word. I'm not a medic. I don't know how the knee works, and I'm also not a psychologist. But as someone else who has also gone through their own psychological experiences, he just looks like someone psychologically worn out.
No, I agree. It's tough, and I mean, yeah, I figured too. I mean, think about what he's coming from a team he won a championship with, to come in here with all these injuries. And last year, you're sitting high 2-3 seed, and Embiid's looking like his MVP, and then some I can't remember the guy's name, but I mean, just the basketball play. Two Embiid and the other guy dive after a ball, and the guy lands on his leg, and you're without Embiid, and you fall to the 7th seed, and you try to play catch up from there. And ever since that, he's been trying to draw up all these different lineups, and just nothing's working for him. It's truly a shame because you saw how good of a coach he was before Embiid started getting hurt last year.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else on the Sixers before we wrap this thing up?
No, just
All right.
keep find a way to get your draft pick. So bench George, bench Maxey, and bench Embiid because it's only top 6 protected.
Yeah, what are we worried about? Are they going to play for contract incentives or something? Come on, what are we talking about?
Right.
Anyway, last thing on the docket, Eagles news, because the Eagles off season. I mean, I know the combine has come and gone, so like there's actually been football things happening, but the fact that we're still on a Super Bowl win and we're talking Eagles news already, I love it. It's crazy. I'd like to transition into, believe it or not, less Eagles talk into the summer, like as you would think we would. But hot topic coming off of the Super Bowl. Let's talk about. I'm going to go with first, which was yesterday's news. Saquon Barkley getting an extension on his contract for an additional 2 years, and it also making him the highest paid running back in NFL history. If I have read this correctly, absolutely deserved. I mean, look, I said it before. Barkley was an Eagle for life, winning the Super Bowl with us this year. I think this contract extension just solidifies that in cement, in asphalt, concrete, whatever we want to say. He is absolutely an Eagle come retirement.
No, absolutely. I mean, when you win a Super Bowl, you get the 2,000 yards for sure. And I mean, good for him. Genius move by Howie again. He gets that contract restructured in a way you're saving $6.5 million for next year's cap. So you find a way to make him the highest paid running back while opening up $6.5 million. Like
what a
win-win for everybody. And win-win
what
for
a Howie move, man. It was some wizardry shenanigans to say the least. That like he made. You said it. You said, I'm sorry, I talked over you, but he made Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history and freed up cap space. Like what?
Yeah. And you saw him. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you saw it used already, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But
bring it up. It's all you.
But yeah, you signed Zach Bond today, extend him 3 years and $51 million, so $17 million a year.
I wanted to applaud.
But yeah, I mean, so yeah, he freed that money up. You know what was happening, and he went out and used it. Yeah, he always has a plan. Like that's the amazing part is he knows what he's doing, and it doesn't take him more than a day to use that money he frees up.
Yeah, apologies for that. The Zach Bond signing, which was recent, right? Like, I mean, it was today, but it was like
it was 5 hours ago.
That's what, like, it was the end of the day kind of a thing. It's so funny how, like, the end of a work day and you're like, oh, well, there's probably not going to be any news in the sports world. It's like, hold my beer. And it's just one of those things.
You're never safe with Howie Roseman. Never safe.
With Howie Roseman and Adam Schefter, you're never safe.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's with Zach Bond getting that new contract. I mean, I'm just so happy for that. First, I mean, Bond was an awesome player. He was absolutely a significant role this year. Crazy that like he was what is that called for someone who didn't have a team or a contract?
Unrestricted free agent.
Unrestricted was what I was trying to get. Thank you. Unrestricted free agent, and he just gets picked up and go. I mean, plenty of things he did this season in the playoffs, but my highlight is just right now the interception in the Super Bowl. I mean, it wasn't a pick six like Cooper DeJean, but like, what are we talking? I mean, this guy goes from being an unrestricted free agent to winning a Super Bowl. I mean, it's just a Howie move, and I'm so thankful that he got re-signed. Now, Howie does have a lot of work to cut out for him still. We did see that we've lost Darius Slay. He might come back, but word is that he's essentially casting his net to see what he can get anywhere. And it's possible he comes back on a smaller deal. It's not out of the question, but he wants to see if he can make money somewhere else. And you know what? He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. If he leaves on good terms, that's good terms. Like, for sure, that's good terms. I wish him nothing but the best. He's in that Funko Pop set from the Super Bowl that I have coming my way. he's absolutely And Slay was a fun ride, social media wise. I'll say that. I've always been a fan of big play Slay. No, he's not everyone. He's not on everyone's radar. Shout out, Dad. But
I love him.
it's
So I got his jersey.
yeah, I know. I love him. He was a good time, and I'm happy to have had him while we did. I do hope he comes back, but it's Howie making Howie moves.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason. I mean, they cut him, opened up cap, and same thing with James Bradbury. They cut him as well. And yeah, again, credit to Howie. It's because of who he was able to draft. He drafts two young guys, and Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, bring them in, and it allows you to make those moves. And same thing with Ely Ringo. I mean, a lot of people forget about him, but he's only 22 years old, so he's another guy. We'll see if he can develop like some of these other guys. I know he's been around already. It hasn't developed into what we thought he might be earlier, but I mean, now that he has more freedom, Bradbury's definitely probably gone. Obviously, you said I think I personally, if I had to guess, I do think Slay's back. If I'm being honest, I think they find a way to get that done.
That'd be awesome.
And you go from there. I think it's similar. I don't know if you remember when the Eagles, Fletcher Cox may have known he was going to do one more year, and they cut him when it was
I do remember
surprising to everybody, and then they restructured it. I think it's going to be similar to that. You get Slay back on a team friendly cap deal, but he's going to have a lot of small incentives that he probably will hit to bring up his yearly salary that doesn't go against the cap. So I think that's the way they get it done. With
I think
Slay
there's a solid chance he might go finish off in Detroit, though.
Yeah, and he's made it known. He loves Detroit. He was on the podcast with one of the receivers, St. Brown, I think it was, and he made it known like he loves Detroit. They're basically home, like two homes for him, and I mean that's where he played his whole career. These two cities. So I would think I'd be surprised if it's not one of Detroit or Philadelphia. I don't see
Agreed.
I don't see how it's done anywhere else, and it stinks because you'd be fighting with Detroit for a playoffs in the playoffs next year. I mean, you saw how good they were this year before losing, so you'll definitely probably see him at some point. Well, we play him, so you'll definitely see him at some point next year.
I'd love to see a jersey swap between like Quinion Mitchell and Slay if he's on the. You know what I mean? Like
there's speculation.
Like
there's speculation. It'd be kind of cool if that's that might be the opening game for the Eagles. Just two very good teams. First game off the Super Bowl, and that'd be kind of cool if he does end up going there. He'll still be able to get his ring on the opening night because he'll be back in town. Because I know they had Detroit scheduled to go to Philly. So
it's very interesting when talking about the schedule because I know Detroit is scheduled to play in Philadelphia next season, and it's like the game we all feel like we were robbed of from this playoff run, right? So like, yeah, that would be a really cool one to start next season with.
And I also hope that because that's before any potential injuries.
Like you'll get the prime Detroit, prime Philadelphia. Yeah. That's going to be a fun game regardless. It would be great to start the season off with.
No, for sure.
I agree. But with the NFL draft not happening until late April, Howie season, still going on. We'll catch you guys up with any news or any speculation we hear. But Andrew, anything else on your radar, or are we about ready to wrap this up?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm just excited to see where the rest of this offseason goes. Obviously, still have free agents out there in Becton, Sweat, and Williams. So hopefully you're able to find a way to bring back at least one of Sweat and Williams there on the defensive end, and obviously Becton on the offensive line would be huge. But I don't think Howie's far from done. I think you're going to continue to see these restructured contracts. You might see some more surprising cuts that they might try to bring back too. But so, I mean, keep an eye out because the Eagles aren't done yet. There's a lot more to be made.
I will say quick answer here, but speculation that if Myles Garrett moves, it could be to Philadelphia. Are you on the likelihood of that happening? Are you on the likelihood that he's not even getting traded? What do you think? Obviously, we want it.
If he's moved, I think it's the Eagles. Yeah, but I don't think he's moved this offseason.
That's what I think. I think majority chance is he stays with Cleveland, but I think if he gets traded, it happens to Philadelphia.
I think he stays with Cleveland in the offseason, maybe a training camp if he does the whole holdout thing or a deadline move. But I don't think his market with this contract is going to be there to be moved right away. But I do think Howie doesn't want him going anywhere in the NFC East, and the Cowboys and Commanders will be heavy pursuers for that deal. So I think he will do what it takes to block them.
Meanwhile, the Giants are going after Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Giants will be bottom of the division again.
Hilarious. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Philly Sports Now, Philly Fan Podcast. You can find our social media links in the below. If you haven't already, please follow us on Spotify. It means a lot. Give us a 5-star rating. Subscribe YouTube, The Philly Gamer. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Philly Sports Now. And as always, go Flyers. Good night.